Hello everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Jam Sports. We're your hosts, Max Danielsen.
And I'm Jared Hedges.
Jared, this week is going to be a very, very big week, of course being the fact that it's homecoming week here at Bishop Lynch High School, but more importantly, the fact that a lot of seasons are about to start, that being the NBA and NHL. But before we dive into the pro sports segment, of course, we have to give a huge thanks to our sponsor, Monkey Sports, for sponsoring us. They have all of your necessities in baseball, hockey, and lacrosse. And Jared, I think we can all guarantee that you are going to find whatever you need at Monkey Sports. So make sure to go visit them. They're off 75 and down Bethany Drive. Make sure that you tell them that we sent you. But Jared, I think without further ado, it's time to jump right into the football side of news in the NFL. Cleveland Browns, they are off to their best start in recent memory. They are 1-2-1 with an overtime loss to the Oakland Raiders by the score of 45-42. Now, Jared, I don't know if you've been watching the season, but their first win came against the Jets, and Baker Mayfield had a phenomenal debut. What do you think Baker Mayfield is going to do for this team this season?
He's really jump-started the offense, giving them a sense of confidence. You look at, with Tyrod Taylor, I mean, he didn't play, too terribly bad. He just got hurt, and the Baker Mayfield coming in lit a fire underneath them, and they got their first win.
And you also look at their offense. They have so much firepower. Of course, Jarvis Landry, Carlos Hyde. They have such a great offense, and then it looks like their defense is also picking up. So we'll see how they do this season. I mean, how many wins are you expecting them to get this season?
I could say easily 6 or 7.
6 or 7? That's a pretty good estimate. Now, going on to the Pittsburgh Steelers. It is a very, very interesting story, kind of, for the Steelers. They're having drama with their wide receiver, Antonio Brown. Their new running back, James Conner, has had a phenomenal season as well, putting up big numbers. But the most important thing is Le'Veon Bell still being out and nowhere to be seen. The real question is, where do you think, because the Steelers are actively shipping him to a different team, who do you think that's going to be? I've heard rumors of it being the Green Bay Packers, the Philadelphia Eagles, or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Or do you think it could be a sleeper team that he goes to?
Well, honestly, they would not trade him to the Buccaneers because he'd be in the same conference. I honestly could see the Packers because, Packers need a running back. And the Philadelphia Eagles, they already have 3 or 4 running backs. They don't particularly need him. But Pittsburgh's looking for a second-round pick and what you would say kind of a starter to play.
And if anything, Green Bay does also have a great shot because, of course, they have 2 first-round picks and a lot of guys that they can ship off that Pittsburgh might need, especially if they're going to go into the rebuild.
And the Dallas Cowboys, if y'all didn't get to see the game, their offense seemed back, and they defeated the Detroit Lions 26-23 on a last-second field goal.
Now, I think the big story this week is Mitch Trubisky. How about this dude throwing 6 touchdowns? Jared, we all knew, or me and you knew, he was about to go off. He has so much potential. Do you think he could be an elite quarterback, or do you think he's going to have the Dak Prescott, where he's elite for one season and then just goes back to normal?
I think he'll be one of the best quarterbacks in the league for the next 10, 15 years, easily. Just the tools that the Bears have. I mean, Allen Robinson, Taylor Gabriel.
Don't forget about Khalil Mack.
And then Khalil Mack on the defense. They finally have a complete team. And, Mitch, it just was a matter of time because he had 13 starts in college. So just getting more experience, and he's primed to go become an elite quarterback.
Now, the hardest part for the Bears this season is their whole division. Now, there's not much say on the Detroit Lions. They do have a pretty good quarterback, but that's really about it. Then you take a look at the Vikings and the Packers, and they have some of the best offenses, and of course, having the Vikings with the best defense, it's a very, very tough division. So we'll just see how that plays out for them. And then moving on to baseball, the baseball season ended on Monday night with tiebreaker games between the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Colorado Rockies, and the Milwaukee Brewers and the Chicago Cubs. We will have those scores up on your screen right now. But speaking of the Brewers, Jared, how about Christian Yelich? Now, his first half wasn't the best, but that second half might have been one of the best performances we've ever seen.
He certainly has the ability to win the NL Triple Crown. Now, the only way that he does that, and again, the Triple Crown is when you lead your league in batting average, home runs, and RBIs. Yelich needs to hit a home run on Monday, and he needs to have 2 RBIs and he will be the Triple Crown winner. And it's just, he's found something in the second half of the season, because in the first half, I mean, he was hitting just fine. It's just he wasn't hurt. I mean, he was playing every single day and just figured it out.
And I believe in the second part of the season, he had 2 cycles, if I'm not mistaken. And for those of you who don't know what a cycle means, that means you get a single, double, triple, and a home run in a game, which is a very hard feat to get, even especially 2 in a season. Now, the playoffs are going to start, or actually started on Tuesday with a wild card game between the losers of the NL games for the tiebreaker, and then the Yankees versus the Athletics. Of course, those scores will be also appearing on your screen right now. And then the NLDS will be starting tonight, and the ALDS will be starting tomorrow night.
And you're looking at, with the ALDS, so far we know a series is between the Cleveland Indians and the Houston Astros, which both pitching staffs will look amazing. And, you know, this past week, Bryce Harper may have played his last game as a Washington National. And Bryce Harper's winning, because, you know, baseball has a lot of money. He's winning a $400 million contract, and the Nationals don't seem like they are willing to pay him.
Now, the question is he really worth that contract? We saw this season he's still a great player nonetheless, but the problem is he also had one of his worst hitting seasons. So the real question is, where do you think his contract lies, and where do you think he's going to go? I'm thinking personally he wants to go to the Yankees and be in the pinstripes.
Well, honestly, for me, I say he's going, because, see, the Yankees, they're going to have people they need to sign. I don't think they have the money to do it. And honestly, I say Chicago, because he's friends with Chris Bryant, or I see him going to Philadelphia because they can offer the most money. And moving on to the NBA, the Mavericks season will start on October 20th against the Minnesota Timberwolves here at the American Airlines Center. And the Mavs played their first preseason game a couple days ago against the Beijing Ducks, winning by the score of 116-63.
Now, the biggest stat I think we have to look at, because, of course, you have all these stats from this game, but the most important one that everyone was looking out for was the rookie sensation from Europe, the 19-year-old Luka Doncic. He had 16 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 blocks. The question now, Jared, is he going to be the player for the future? Now, being the fact that he's drafted 3rd overall, he has so high expectations. And, of course, now you have one of the best future backcourts in the NBA with Dennis Smith Jr. I mean, what do you see in this guy? Do you think he's going to be what all the hype is? I mean, he's 19. He won the EuroLeague championship as well as the MVP. And if you know anything about the EuroLeague, it is the 2nd best league in the world. And just being 19, it's pretty insane for him to do that.
He'll have to be a great player, or else he'll be considered one of the biggest busts in NBA history. I mean, drafting him that high in the draft, and he will be a great player. Looking at his handles that he has and his size, he can control the ball really, really well.
Now, the Mavericks are in a bit of a hole right now, of course, losing Harrison Barnes to a hamstring injury. But the future for the Mavericks also looks very good, of course, when Dirk Nowitzki retires, that being possibly this season, or he might play one more. But the bottom line is, sadly, Dirk's career is coming to an end very soon. I mean, you have guys like Maxi Kleber, who actually came from the same town as Dirk. The Mavericks signed him out of nowhere, and he had a very great season last year, and it seems like he's going to have a great season this year. And then the Mavericks also finally got their centerpiece that they've been looking for, that being DeAndre Jordan. We remember a couple years ago, I believe when we were going into our freshman year, when DeAndre Jordan spurned the Mavericks and went back to the Clippers after that whole lockout scenario. But then, I think the biggest part for the Mavericks right now is their last pick in the NBA draft, that being Kostas Antetokounmpo. If you know the last name, you know the heritage, of course being the brother of Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is one of the faces of the league and could be considered to be one of the most athletic players in the entire league. So, Jared, the real question is, where do you see the Mavericks being in the next couple of years?
Well, I mean, this year I think they have a great shot at an 8 seed, because it really depends, because I think the Timberwolves are going to lose Jimmy Butler in a couple of days, and you know, an 8 seed, and just after every year, you could compare them, I think, to maybe the Atlanta Braves, a team that maybe will become really good a few years before you really expect them to.
And then, of course, going into your favorite sport, the NHL, the Stars are about to open the season tonight at the American Airlines Center versus the Arizona Coyotes at 7:30 p.m. Jared, of course, you being the expert about hockey, or the quote-unquote expert, you know a lot about what the Stars are doing. In the past years, we had a lot of goaltender problems and a lot of defensive problems. Do you think they have fixed these problems, or where do you expect the Stars to finish? Or is it going to be like last season where they start off really hot and then they just go downhill for the last part of the season?
Well, they have a brand new head coach in Jim Montgomery, who came from Denver University. The defense looks like they could be really, really good this year with the third overall pick from a couple years ago, Miro Heiskanen. He'll be, honestly, he could be fitted along to play with John Klimberg on the top line. They're going to score plenty of goals. You know that.
Their first line being insane with Alexander Radulov. Then you have Tyler Seguin, who they just signed to a 9-year deal. And as well, their captain, Jamie Benn. And as well, their second line is not that bad either.
Yeah, what the Stars have, which they've never had issues with, is having forwards. They have so many of them that, really, they send down to the minor leagues who could be starting for any other team in the league.
And Jared, I think this is going to wrap up another edition of Jam Sports. As of course, we thank you from myself, Max Danielsen,
and Jared Hedges.
Wishing you, as always, a pleasant good morning, a good afternoon, or good evening to you, wherever or whenever you may be watching. Thank you and happy homecoming week.